Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to our second topic. Now, in this topic, we are going to talk about the demand for and supply of money. Remember, this is the monetary and financial systems unit for the banking and finance students. So, under monetary and financial systems, we talk about the demand for and the supply of money. What do you mean by the demand for money? Now, the demand for money usually talks about why do people want to have money with themselves? What do you demand money for? Personally, personally I demand money for bundles, fare, and so on. Okay? So, when you talk about the demand for money, you mean that why do people need money to do the things that they want to do? Then you also have the supply of money. And at the supply of money, we are trying to understand specifically why do people how does the central bank supply money into the market? Okay, what are the methods that the central bank uses to increase or reduce the supply of money in the market? So today we'll just talk about the demand for money, and the demand for money also thinks about something called the money balances. Okay, now these money balances, what are these money balances? This refers to the sum of money that is held by individuals. Okay, so when the demand for money is high, the amount of money that people demand, when the demand for money is high, we talk about the liquidity preference of people being higher. So there are a number of theories that have been suggested to explain the demand for money. Now, a number of economists came and explained this. We have the Keynes demand for money, what you usually call the Keynes preference theory. Now, Keynes believed, this was a great economist. A lot of theories that have been proposed and that are actually being used to run different economies in the world come from this guy called Keynes. Then we had the Tobin's portfolio approach. The Tobin's approach is a very good way to look at how the government decides under the open market operations, how the government decides at what time or which bonds do you buy and which bonds to sell. Tobin and Baumol really worked together on that. Then we had the Baumol's, B-A-U-M-O-L-S, Baumol's inventory approach, and finally we have the Friedman's theory of money demand. Now this is the one that we had an equation such as that. MD is equals to K what? KPV. I told you guys that under diploma in banking and finance, you really have to do your economics. You really have to understand the economics for you to have an easier time understanding this. So anyway, let's continue from what we are. So these three approaches are rather advanced for our level. What we just learned today, or under the second topic, will be the Keynes demand for money. Now, Keynes had a number of ways where he believed that how money is used. That is, people demand money. People want to have money for different reasons. First, he talked about the money that people demand, not for the money in the bank, but rather the money that people want in their pocket or easily accessed. And that's why we usually call it the liquidity preference theory. From our certificate level, you understand what we mean by liquidity. Liquidity is the liquid cash that people have in their pocket. It does not refer to the money that people have in intangible assets. So assets, cars, and all that do not count as liquid cash. So Keynes believed that people usually hold money for three specific motives. That is, people will want to have money in its form of cash because of one, transactional motive. Now, the transactional motive, according to this motive, people usually hold money because for their day-to-day uses. So Mr. Benson holds money. Why? He wants to be able to pay his transport costs. He wants to be able to pay for his meals, and so on. Therefore, these day-to-day transactions day-to-day transactions that have to be paid, according to Keynes, he believed that people usually hold money, and people usually hold money for that. Now, there are a number of factors that usually influence that part of what makes people want to hold money in their pocket. The first one is the level of income, the income level. Of course, you expect someone that has a higher income, to be able to hold more money for the transactional level. Then you also expect that the intervals of payment. Someone that is being paid weekly, someone who's being paid monthly, someone who's being paid after a specific period of time, they'll have a different amount of money that they want every day. Of course, Mr. Benson does not use the same amount of money for transport as maybe CS Magoha. We don't use the same amount of money for meals because of the difference in our income level. Then the difference in the intervals of payment. Personally, I have to put money aside for the day-to-day usage for a longer period of time, being a monthly person. But someone that usually gets paid daily, okay, like the casual laborer that usually comes to town and gets paid 1,000 shillings every day, does not have to put money aside every day for transport, because that daily 1,000 you can use for today and tomorrow. And then finally, another factor that usually affects this is the prices of goods. Expensive goods, the purchasing power of the money, or the value of the money that you have, will determine how much amount you put aside. Someone that comes from Rongai will not put the same amount of money for transport as someone that comes from Ngara, and they both have to report to town. So that's all under the transactional motive. What you can understand is that under the transactional motive, people put money aside for the day-to-day usage. Then there's the precautionary motive. From the word precaution, people usually set money aside for the precaution, or for the unforeseen events that may occur. Now think of so the good example that I've given here is someone who is staying in Rongai. Now, you know, when it rains in Rongai, if the fare was 100 shillings, it shoots to 200 or 150 shillings. So what do you do about that? So under Keynes' liquidity preference theory, people usually put money aside for those unforeseen events. Maybe you have a young kid and they become sick, or it rains, okay? You have to put some money aside for that. So according to Keynes, people usually put some level of money aside for that reason, for emergencies and unforeseen events. Now, what are the factors that affect the amount of money that you put aside for the precautionary motive? Of course, one of them is of course your income level. Let's use letter Y. This is the economic denotation of the word of the income. Then another thing, it depends on where you live, okay? A bachelor will not put outside money for sickness as compared to someone that has 3 or 4 kids. So depending on the condition that a person lives in, it will determine the money balances that you actually put aside for that. Actually, let me just add that. The conditions that someone lives with will determine. A father that has 6 kids will decide to put a lot of their money aside, because you don't want someone to fall ill at any time. Then you have the speculative motive. Keynes believed that other than people putting aside money for their day-to-day activities and for the unforeseen events, people also put money aside to speculate, or to have to take advantage of some unforeseen investment options. Say for example, you meet someone and they're telling you, I'm really in a fix, I want to sell my phone for 2,000. There are people that usually have put money aside for that. That is just like the previous one. It always depends on the income level, because you cannot put money aside unless you have money that can be kept aside for that. So maybe you can just we can talk about what usually determines the speculative motives. Let me give you an example. You're leaving home today and you're given 300 shillings. Okay? Let me explain this in layman's terms. You're given 300 shillings, and according to Keynes, this 300 shillings, depending on how well you understand your economics, you may decide that 150 shillings are used for lunch and transport. Okay? Then you may decide, I'm not sure if it rains, but let me put 100 shillings aside just in case it rains. I may be able to afford extra fare or buy an umbrella or something in case it rains. And then the remaining 50 bob, there's that friend of yours that is always felt that if I buy them maybe the normal chocolate and so on, it will be an investment for the future. So that's what you mean by the maybe you decide to buy your friend. So those are the three reasons that Keynes believed people wanted to have cash in their pockets, so that they are able to first to pay for their transactions, then to have money for precautions, and also for investment. I think that's all under the demand for money. Next time we'll come and talk about the different ways the central bank controls the supply of money. Thank you and have a great evening.